Just over my head you can see a little picture. It's a ship that I was on during the war, HMAS Nizam. It was a N-class destroyer, which there are 5 of them in the Australian Navy. They were borrowed from the English Navy. We didn't see any action while I was on her, which is all very fortunate for me. So that was a pretty good thing, really. But I had my little ups and downs with that ship. But on one occasion the vessel rolled right over. It was in a freak accident off the coast of Western Australia at the Cape Leeuwin. There's a cairn up there these days. It's just near Augusta, which is the nearest town to the Cape. And it commemorates the deaths of 10 people who were washed overboard when this vessel rolled over. There seems to be a lot of uncertainty as to how far it rolled, but as I was on the bridge at the time and walking up the side, I was easily able to see just exactly how far it went, because I was standing quite comfortably and balanced, and looking aft I could see the funnel and the mast lying on the water. So the 10 guys who were lost were those on the various places on the upper deck. There was one within a couple of feet of me in a little place beside the bridge, which housed a searchlight, 20-inch searchlights, which we used partly for signalling with shutters on the front. But this guy, young guy, he just got swept right out of the box that he was there in what they call a sponson, and he vanished along with the others. They were all on deck keeping watch, as we did during the war, of course. And there was always a gun crew up forward in front of the bridge, and I think there's one guy, he must have been having a bit of a sleep on deck because he was a stoker and he had no business to be there. Anyway, so that's been commemorating for some years that cairn has been up there. And in 1992 the skipper at the time, a fellow by the name of Cook, he was there, but unfortunately I never knew anything about it, so I wasn't there. But subsequently I went there on the 60th anniversary of the incident, which of course would make it 2005. So in February 2005 I was over there and meeting up with quite a lot of fellows there, and none of them I knew, but various ones that interested in the incident. And so that's the story, that particular story of Nizam, which was quite a disaster, but it was one of the worst things that happened to me during the war, so I had a pretty easy trot, really. I was going to join the Air Force, but I wasn't allowed because my mother wouldn't sign the papers. At that time, of course, you had to be 21 to have a free hand and do as you liked. And so after turning 18 and being refused in that way, I bumped into a fellow who had joined the Navy, and I decided, oh well, this'll do, I'll have to get stuck into somewhere. So that's what I did. And so went into the Navy, and the last ship that I was on was the Nizam. Previous to that, I'd been on an armed merchant cruiser called Canimbla. It used to be a coastal vessel, passenger vessel around the coast of Australia. Subsequent to that, I joined the Adelaide, hoping to get into some action, if you like. That was a very old cruiser who never went anywhere and did anything startling at all. So anyway, eventually I got on the Nizam, and I thought, well, now I joined the action. But as far as Nizam was concerned, all the action had happened before I joined her. But we joined up with the British fleet in India, and saw aircraft carriers and that sort of thing. And one occasion, the aircraft flew off the end of the carrier and just flopped straight into the sea. So we, as the escorting destroyer, were there to pick him up, which we did. And this young fellow, he just bounced up onto the bridge, and he didn't have anything much particular on. He was just he could have just been a surfy or something. But he jumped out of his aeroplane as it hit the water, and we picked him up and he was okay, so that was a good thing. So some of the aircraft went off and bombed oil tanks and things in Burma. And anyway, we went back home, and on the way back on the further occasion to join the fleet, this is when the accident happened that I referred to before. Subsequent to that, of course, we went to join the American and British fleets together out in the Pacific, and once again, of course, it all happened. Leyte Gulf and Guadalcanal and those places had all happened before, and some horrific war fleet actions had taken place. Just reading a book called Midway, which was the attack of the Japanese fleet on the island of Midway, halfway over to America. But very, very fortunately, the Japanese fleet were beaten. Aircraft carriers were damaged beyond repair, sunk, whatever. Three of their large carriers were demolished, and that was a very successful action on the part of the Americans. Tremendous story. Must read the book. It's a very, very interesting story. Anyway, as far as we finished up in Tokyo for 2 hours alongside the wharf, and then we departed. We left. Just went back, and mooched around the Pacific a little bit before I was subsequently discharged. From the island of Ambon, and then that came down by aircraft, DC-3 or Dakota. My first flight. Flew down to Darwin, Adelaide and Melbourne, and I was discharged. That was the end of the war for me, and the end of the Navy. So there we go, and probably get some more story before long, but in the meantime we'll close with that. Thanks very much, and goodbye.